to the cockpit of our sailing boat Argo.
In our last video, we moved aboard the boat and started sailing the Balearics with our friends, all within a matter of a few days, which was kind of our first rookie error because it was a little bit rushed, wouldn't you say?
Yes, it was a bit rushed, but we had a great time anyway. So
yeah, we left off leaving Mallorca for Ibiza, and this time sailed Ibiza and Formentera. It was, however, a little bit rushed again because we had a fairly tight schedule with our wedding to go to, and we ended up buying some tickets to Calvin Harris at Ushuaïa in Ibiza, and we really wanted to go. I know that's not a good reason for adjusting cruising plans, but we made it all the same and had an incredible time.
yes, too many plans for our first summer on the boat, but
Yeah.
we learned from our mistakes anyway.
Yeah,
So,
everything's a lot more calm these days, and we've learned to not make so many plans and not try to stick to a really strict schedule. Anyway, enjoy the video. In our last video, we had just made it to St. Elm late at night, which would be our departure point for crossing to Ibiza. Unfortunately for us, there was barely any wind, so we had to motor again because we still did not yet have a decent light wind sail. Under normal circumstances, we'd probably just wait for the right wind, but we had a schedule to keep. We had a few anchorages in mind to spend the night, but once we sighted land in Ibiza, we decided to head for Cala Llonga. It offered great protection and looked like a really nice swimming spot. We arrived just before sunset and the water looked so good that we had to immediately jump in for a swim. Some took a little bit longer than others to get in. Hurry up! Go! And others found more creative ways. We had a relaxed morning of swimming and stand-up paddleboarding, and I went for a walk to check out the Cala. It is very much a resort town, but the beach is still very nice and offers several bars and little shops. It wasn't too long before we were underway again, this time just heading a couple of hours south to Talamanca, which is kind of the only free anchorage really close to Ibiza town. The weather was quite hazy, so the video doesn't quite do the water justice. It is very clear and a lovely place for a swim, although a little bit busy with boats. In the western corner of the bay is a really great dinghy dock, and it's about 20 minutes walk to Ibiza town.
Ushuaïa.
We were actually really pleasantly surprised with Ibiza town. It has so many interesting alleyways with bars, tapas restaurants and shops. We spent hours just walking around. We essentially sat down and had a drink and tapas in one place before getting up and doing the same thing somewhere else. It was really nice just to wander through the town at night. We eventually ended up in the old city walls where there are even more tapas restaurants and bars meandering all the way to the top of the fort. Because we planned on partying that night seeing Calvin Harris in Ushuaïa, we bit the bullet and got a marina berth in Ibiza Port for the night. It was a little nerve-wracking coming to the port as there were several huge cruise ships, huge ferries, sailing yachts, super yachts, dinghies, all coming in and out at the same time.
You know how loud it'll be at this distance?
After a little bit of a tricky stern-to mooring with the wind, we were all set to get ready for our big night out at Ushuaïa.
What a location.
For those who aren't familiar with it, Ushuaïa is one of the biggest nightclubs in Ibiza, and we were really excited to see Calvin Harris there that night. After a super late night, we for some reason decided to punish ourselves further, moving back to the anchorage and also getting some laundry done. Simple tasks like getting in and out of the dinghy proved quite challenging. We finished on a high note, however, having some delicious tapas just near the entry to the city wall. In the morning, I awoke to find a couple of pairs of shorts that had been drying on the safety lines missing, and about 25 knots of wind blowing in our anchorage alone. While trying to figure out if the two things were related, we decided to postpone our sailing to Formentera until the afternoon, when the winds were expected to die down a little. In the meantime, I took the opportunity to explore a little further within the fort walls of the Ibiza Old Town. I must admit that my expectations for Ibiza were very much shaped by the reputation of beach clubs, nightclubs, and partying in general. So it was a real pleasant surprise to find so much history and culture within the Ibiza town walls. It is one of the oldest towns in Europe, and the Renaissance city walls are still very much intact, so much so that you can walk around it. While up there on the city walls, I noticed that the winds had eased and there were even a couple of sailboats already making their way down to Formentera, so I thought that it was a good opportunity to get back to the boat and head off ourselves.
Oh, beautiful wind on the way to Formentera.
The passage down to Formentera is a relatively straightforward and short one. We were, however, expecting it to take a little bit longer than it did, but with 15 to 20 knots of wind behind us, we absolutely flew down, even just with the Genoa and mizzen sail up. The sail setup, also known as jib and jigger.
Overtaken by a car ferry. Ibiza Strait. It's a bit tight.
We arrived in Formentera when there were still quite a few day boats out, and it was a little bit busy, so we ended up re-anchoring a little bit closer to shore after they all left for the day. After that, it was the usual ritual of swim, sunset drinks, dinner on deck before turning in for the night.
We are here in Formentera. The water is absolutely stunning. We arrived yesterday evening from Ibiza. We thought it would take at least 2 hours to get here, but we had some really nice winds and we absolutely flew down, averaging close to 7 knots, I think. Yeah, there's a lot of wind last night, but this morning there's absolutely nothing, so it's perfect for a beach day. I think everyone's having some coffee and breakfast right now, and in a second we'll take either the paddleboards or the dinghy to the shore and have a bit of a walk around, because this is meant to be one of the best beaches in Europe. We'll have to see.
God, that water is so clear. That might be the clearest water I've ever been in. Today is just all about enjoying this beautiful water, some paddleboarding, some swimming, and maybe later on we're going to go to one of these few beach bars along here. It's really great. These beach bars offer their own dinghy service to the boats, and we might even get a dinghy service from Argo to our sunset drinks tonight. So here are these dinghies that bring people from their boats to the restaurant bars up here. I'm going to go ask him if it's a complimentary service, and we might just use it this evening. As is often the case, we opt for having sunset drinks on Argo from within the cockpit because the view is usually a bit better anyway.
Your partner's slowly turning into a lobster roll, getting slowly burnt.
Right, water. With a beach, water and weather like this, we weren't exactly left wanting for anything else, except maybe a couple of cold beers. So my friend Sean very gallantly offered to take the stand-up paddleboard all the way to Argo and come back stocked up with some nice cold beers for us to enjoy on the beach. My hero. Did you bring the beers? What do we all think of Formentera, guys?
Amazing.
Cheers. Good.
Sorry, do you mean free beers?
I have to say it's pretty good value location here. Stay for free at Anchor overnight.
Walking beers.
Bring your own beers to the beach, and soon we'll go have lunch with the best view on the beach. So
With $2 pizzas.
here's to yeah, exactly. Here's to bow life. Pay for itself.
Pay for itself.
We did return to Argo for lunch and spent the afternoon swimming, snorkeling, paddleboarding, and simply just lazing on deck reading. It was the perfect way to spend the afternoon in Formentera, I think.
Where are we right now, Bryn?
Formentera!
Now, why do we dock the boat here?
Well, it is the place to stay and get the perfect turquoise waters, and it doesn't cost a thing. How was it?
Great.
The next day we had a nice slow morning, but after breakfast we set sail for the north of Ibiza. Now we would have loved to go right round the island of Ibiza, but we were sticking to our rather tight schedule. We all had to get to Italy for our friend's wedding, and the only place that was feasible to put Argo in a marina berth for the whole week was in Mallorca. So we were making our way to the north tip of Ibiza just to make the crossing over to Mallorca a little bit shorter. There were light winds, but we still managed to do some decent sailing. We were headed for Cala de San Vincent, which is right up in the northeast of Ibiza. Once there, we discovered that Cala de San Vincent was yet another one of these beautiful coves with a couple of resorts that looked like you could just spend several days in. One of these days we will end up returning to the rest of Ibiza to spend a little bit more time in places like this. We went to shore to get some groceries and couldn't resist stopping for a cocktail and some tapas at On the Beach, a really great cocktail bar perfectly positioned right on the Cala. It was a bit sad to be leaving Ibiza so soon, but with a 8 or 9 hour crossing and the winds kind of just perfect for the day, it was time to go. The place we were aiming for was yet another party destination, or at least close to one, that is San Matias, which is very close to the party destination of Magalouf. We would have loved to explore a bit more the coves of East Mallorca, but we all had flights to catch, and we kind of liked the idea of sending off our inaugural crew with a bit of a party in Magalouf. Besides, Abdul and myself would be returning in a bit over a week to do the east coast of Mallorca with my parents. It actually turned out to be a really beautiful sail, and we used mostly just Genoa and Mizzen in the jib and jigger formation again. We entered the Bay of Palma in the late afternoon and found our anchorage at San Matias, which was actually a lot prettier than I expected. In the evening we took a walk down the main party street of Magalouf and started questioning our decision to come here, but in the morning it was all good and we were ready to go start acting like 18-year-old tourists. Before the fun could begin though, we did realise that we were quite low on water and could do with a bit of a diesel top up, so Abdul and I practiced just double handing and pulled up anchor to go across the bay to fill up on some diesel and some water and throw out a bit of rubbish. This ended up being one of the more costly diesel and water stops, with us even being charged €5 per bag of garbage for disposal. Just came in for a quick gas and water, or diesel and water stop, and they're charging us how much for garbage disposal?
€5.
Oh my god. We should have had more garbage. In the afternoon we took a walk around Magalouf and somehow managed to track down one of the few places that wasn't just selling deep fried food, before heading back to Argo to get ready for our big night out in Magalouf. We checked out a few of the smaller bars, but the big nightclub here is BCM, so we had to go check it out and ended up partying into the early hours of the morning, and even managed to see a beautiful sunrise from the cockpit of Argo. The next morning, or should I say afternoon, we opted into the fried food finally. Cuisine, ribs. For the final evening with our inaugural crew of Argo, we decided to take some drinks with us to the beach. Some of us taking the stand-up paddleboard and others taking the dinghy. We should have known it was a trap. After our crew finished terrorizing us with the dinghy, it was actually a really lovely evening on the beach.
Hola. ¿Dónde estamos?
Estamos en Magalouf.
Magalouf.
Party in Magalouf. In the morning, it was time to sadly say goodbye to our inaugural crew. They were flying out to the wedding a couple of days earlier, while Abdul and I had to stay and put Argo in a marina berth for the week of the wedding.
Yeah.
We're not getting anywhere.
See you. My crew.
With the crew gone, we decided it was a good time to load up on some provisions and do some shopping for the boat that we simply didn't have time for earlier. Are you excited about finding an outlet? Who's the lucky girl with a new toy?
Abuela Abril.
In particular, a little grandma shopping cart, which actually makes grocery shopping on a boat so much easier. The next day, Abril and I raised the anchor and crossed the Bay of Palma. For the most part, it was some nice sailing, but right in the middle of the bay, there was some interesting wind situations, which meant that we eventually had to start motoring. It was a nice little test, as it was the first time that just the two of us had been sailing. Our first experience at double-handed sailing. We were heading for a marina in Saronel, where we planned to put Argo for about a week while we went to a wedding in Italy and then toured around the area a little bit. Before flying to Italy, we did have the chance to welcome our next set of crew, that being my parents, who had flown from Australia to have a holiday and were excited to do some sailing.
Yay!
They had a holiday apartment in Mallorca, but would eventually end up spending several nights on Argo while we were still in Italy.
It's strong though.
I gotta get used to that.
We're gonna be at anchor, so you won't have to get used to that.
Hi, how are you?
With a late flight from Mallorca, that night was pretty much spent on a bench in Barcelona airport while we waited for our flight to Florence to get to our friend's wedding. Alright, thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe. In the next video, we'll be sailing from the Balearics to Sardinia with my parents. Alright, bye.
Bye.